The Save the Cat beat sheet was originally developed by Blake Snyder to help screenwriters plot movies, but it works just as well with graphic novels and, of course, novels. It breaks down the 3-act structure into small, specific sections, sometimes just one scene long. Each section pushes your story forward in its own way. The exact word count, page count of each section depends on how long your novel is and what type of story you're telling. Fill in your ideas for each section. Don't write your whole novel here, just jot down general ideas for sections and scenes, like Javier's in elevator when earthquake hits and Molly fights with sister, chases down taxi. Act 1. Opening image, 0 to 1%, show a before snapshot of your protagonist and their world. What is life like before the adventure begins? Setup, 1 to 10%, keep showing that ordinary, before world. Explore your protagonist's life, including the internal flaws and external challenges they'll have to overcome in order to change for the better by the end of the story. Also introduce important supporting characters. Theme stated, happens during the setup. Somewhere in your setup, include a scene where a character says something that hints at what the protagonist's big life lesson will be, how they'll have to change and grow by the end of the story. The protagonist won't understand the lesson until later, though. Catalyst, 10%, this is when life as they know it changes forever. There's no going back to the before world from here. What is the inciting incident that pushes the protagonist into the next phase of the story? Debate, 11 to 20%, but change is scary. Show the protagonist questioning themselves and resisting the path ahead, wondering whether they have what it takes, or whether or not they should just run home and hide under the bed. This is their last chance to chicken out. Should I just? I really shouldn't because. But what about?
Act 2. Break into 2, 20%, your protagonist answers the call. They make the choice to begin their adventure, transformation, journey, new thing. Show your protagonist deciding to plunge into Act 2. The promise of the premise, fun and games, 21 to 50%. This is when the reader thinks, now we're getting to the good stuff they hinted at on the back cover of this book. It's also one of the longest sections in your book. Show your protagonist getting used to their new world, loving it, hating it, making mistakes or doing well, meeting new people, and keeping the reader entertained. B story happens during the promise of the premise. Introduce a new character or characters who will eventually help the protagonist learn their life lesson. Friends, mentors, love interests, nemesis. Who are they? How will they help? Midpoint, 50%. This moment is when everything seems great, or everything seems awful, depending on your story. Either the fun and games section has led to a false victory for your protagonist, they think they've been doing great so far, or a false defeat, they've been having a hard time so far. What happens in this moment, halfway between beginning and end? Bad guys close in, 51 to 75%, get ready for a bumpy ride. If your midpoint was a false victory, now things start to go wrong for your protagonist. If the midpoint was a false defeat, well, things seem to be looking up, but the bad guys are getting closer, and will have something to say. Note, bad guys can be actual physical enemies, but they can also be emotional enemies, like doubt or jealousy or fear. Show the protagonist's newly built world beginning to unravel. This will also be one of the longer sections in your novel. All is lost, 75%, oh dear. This is when something happens to make your character hit rock bottom. It's the absolute lowest part of your novel. Maybe someone or something dies, either literally or figuratively. What does this moment look like for your protagonist? Dark night of the soul, 76 to 80%. Your protagonist now has time to react to their all is lost moment, to mourn what they lost and wallow in hopelessness. Yeah, it's not pretty. They are worse off than they were at the beginning of the novel. Show how low things have gotten.
Act 3. Break into 3, 80%, the aha moment, the lift yourself up and try again moment. Show the protagonist realizing what they need to do in order to tackle their problems, both external and internal. Finale, 81 to 99%. The protagonist does what they decided to do in the break into 3 beat. And because of all the learning and growing they've done and the support or insight from the B story, their plan works. The bad guys are defeated, the world is changed for the better. What are the battles? How will the protagonist triumph, or not? This is another longer section, so you've got the space to make things dramatic and intense. Final image, 99 to 100%. This is the opposite of the opening image, the after snapshot instead of the before. Show the reader how the protagonist and their world have changed.
Opening image, 1 page long. 1. Lycia. 2. The Divine Throne Room. A. The Throne. B. The Dais. C. Pillars of the Divine Throne Room. 3. The Pool of Visions. A. Overking. 4. King Zuthra. Setup, 1 and 3/5 pages long. 1. Known planes of existence. 2. The Great Seduction. A. Consummating the marriage. B. The bloodline. 3. Ilubu. 4. Senti. 5. Tiana.
Theme stated, added into the setup. 1. The act of providence is knowing of things to come before they happen. Catalyst, 1 and 3/5 pages long. 1. Up to. 2. Imams. 3. Merchants. Debate, 2 pages long. 1. The betrayal. A. Tiana betrays Zuthra. Break into 2 pages long. 1. Up-to is imprisoned. A. Up-to is placed in the lower levels of the Palace of the Divine.
Midpoint, 1 and 3/5 pages long. 1. Destruction of Lycia. A. Fire falls from the skies of the Lycian Empire. Bad guys close in, 2.5 pages long. 1. Zuthra's enemies close in. A. Planned invasion of Lycia. All is lost, half-page long. 1. The destruction of Lycia. Dark night of the soul, 1 page. 1. Crumbling cities of the empire. Break into 3, half-page. 1. Zuthra awakens from his vision.
Finale, 2 pages long. 1. Mass exodus. 2. Separated from the plains. A. The high heavens of Lycia. B. Terraced capital of the divine. C. The sentinels. Final image, half page long. 1. The divine palace. A. The divine throne room. B. Lower levels of the divine palace. C. Up-to.
One. The Overking Zuthra sits on his throne, which sits high upon a dais, surrounded by pillars that stretch high, up to the ceiling of the divine throne room. 2. The known planes of existence consist of 6 known planes of existence, known as the higher planes of Lycia, the planes of Protean, the cardinal plane, the Orphidian plane, the Serpentine planes, and then the Saurian plane. 3. Theme stated. The act of providence is in knowing of things to come, before they happen. Zuthra took his wives through the great seduction, entering their minds, and claiming each as his wife and consummating the marriage. The purity and survival of the bloodline, within the royal family, is of utmost importance. The continuation of the bloodline among Zuthra's family must occur. For as long as can be remembered, it has been this way.
Iliba was a wife of Zuthra, seduced when he placed his hand upon her head while she slept. In her dream he made love to her, impregnated her, and consummated their marriage. Senti was a wife of Zuthra, seduced when he entered into her mind while she went down to a river to bath, seducing her into a hunt, where he impregnated her within a dream, as she rested at night, while she was on the hunt. Tiana was another wife of Zuthra's, seduced through an unusual circumstance, considering that her and her people would torture and kill their men, keeping only the babies born who were female, and killing all of the males. Each woman within Tiana's tribe would torture men only for the pleasure they enjoyed when inflicting pain upon them, and this was how Zuthra was able to seduce her. Making himself appear as her slave, he allowed her to torture him. After a while, through Tiana's lust for blood, Zuthra was able to consummate the marriage and impregnated her with his child. She succumbed to the desires that she had for bloodlust. Because of the trickery that was played on her, Tiana swore vengeance upon Zuthra, and never forgave him for what he had done.
For, all throughout the realms, merchants and warlords pillage, trade goods, and dictate what is made, who can make it, and who people can buy from, and sell to. Warlords destroy those settlements who do not follow their orders, and pay tribute to them. 5. In Lycia there is no good and evil, there is only balance between darkness and light. 6. Whispers spread across Lycia about conspirators and treacherous draconian infiltrators, who sow mistrust among the people. 7. Abtu, a reptilian priest of the Draco, travels to Lycia, swaying many humans into following the ways of the Draco. Imams become self-proclaimed satraps, and Zuthra is forced into decreasing their power, replacing imams with ones that he can trust. Responsibilities of the imams soon consist only of the delegation between trade merchants, many of whom conspire with Abtu in illegal trades, consisting of human slave trade and genetic research, drugs which convert humans into mindless followers of whoever has it. Most of the imams and merchants are influenced by this drug, and those who aren't, trade with Abtu out of greed.
Abtu is captured and is imprisoned within the lowest levels of Zuthra's palace, and also below the divine throne room, a place where the imams and Zuthra can closely monitor his every move. 9. The truth comes when Zuthra discovers Tiana's treacherous acts of betrayal. Zuthra's enemies draw in for the kill. 10. Hellish flames fall from the sky above the burned-out cities below. Zuthra, the high heavens of Lycia, the terraced capital of the divine, and the divine palace, are placed on separate planes by the imams. This also included Abtu, though, who was imprisoned within the lower levels of the divine palace. Though protected from the upcoming invasion by the Draco, the high heavens are still separated from the terraced capital of the divine, within two separate planes of existence. 11. Zuthra sits within the divine throne room, knowing that his enemy is almost upon him, and the end is close at hand. He grieves, though, over the lives lost. Entire families lost without warning. In visions, he sees his people gathered up by the Draconian, being used as food, and experimentation with genetics. The force that once empowered Zufra has now drained out of him, and tears of Zufra's shame and guilt are shadowed in self-pity and pain.
Awakening from his premonition, Zufra remembered what he saw. The Imams and the sinister Draconian plot did not happen yet. He knew that what he saw was real though, and it was going to happen soon. Suddenly, familiar words crossed his mind: the act of providence is in knowing of things to come before they happen. Zufra immediately began to evacuate his people, and the Imams isolated the high heavens and the palace of the divine by transporting each into other planes of existence. Again, separated from the other planes. Abtu was still a prisoner within the lower levels of the palace. He had just been captured and placed there by the Imams. 13. The mass exodus had begun, as the Draconian invasion began. All the deceived followers of the Draconian stayed behind, awaiting their new masters. Zufra had organized the best route of evacuation though, choosing planets to travel to, and eventually resettle. Merchant ships were loaded with passengers, while all military battleships were en route, and preparing for battle. As fire fell from the sky, the Lycian fleet fell out of hyperspace, and on arrival were destroyed immediately. The Draconian fleets were there to meet them. Merchant ships filled with passengers and cargo had already fled, heading to locations that were considered safe. Survivors fled to two separate quadrants, while Zufra and the Divine Throne Room was placed in a plane of existence separated from the rest, with hopes of someday returning to claim what was rightfully his. 14. Lycia laid in ruins, while the Imams who now proclaimed themselves as satraps regained their power, under the control of the new Empress Tiana, a puppet ruler for the Draconian Empire. These Draconian rulers spoke telepathically through human slaves, captured during the invasion, to followers of the Draco, and they only heard the message of their masters. Later, these slaves, and followers, would flee too, as Tiana slowly gave into her hidden darkness that was within her mind, offering humans to the Draco as payment for her rule. She began to desire more pain and suffering from her subjects, until that was all that she enjoyed. Soon, Lycia became a desolate memory of a lost civilization that fell many years ago.